What is a habit and how do our brains reward us for good behaviour? Our brains are highly complex machines. As the control centre for our entire bodies, they are constantly working, coordinating and regulating a huge array of bodily processes. This includes how we learn, form habits and respond to rewards. In fact, our brains have a special way of making us feel happy when we do things that are good for us. This is all thanks to a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is like a reward our brains give us when we do something enjoyable. It makes us feel happy and encourages us to do the same thing again. For example, when we eat something delicious, our brains give us a little burst of dopamine to say, "That was tasty, let's do that again." So why do our brains do this? Our brains reward us with dopamine to encourage actions and behaviours that are good for us. It's like a pat on the back for doing something healthy. But not everything triggers our brains to release dopamine. For example, if we have to do something boring or unpleasant, like cleaning our room or doing our homework, our brains don't respond in the same way. That's because our brains aren't as excited about those things, so they don't give us the same reward. This process helps us to make good, enjoyable choices that our brains believe will keep our bodies happy and healthy. So how does this process relate to addiction? So far we have talked about how our brains encourage us to form healthy habits that are good for us. However, although smart, the reward process used by our brains isn't foolproof. Unfortunately, it can easily be fooled by things that aren't good for us at all. Substances like alcohol, nicotine, and many illegal drugs are known to trick the brain into releasing dopamine, even though these substances are bad for our survival. What's more, the brain releases far more dopamine than it would during a normal healthy activity like listening to music or socialising with friends. Depending on the drug and the amount consumed, the sudden burst of chemicals can make people feel happy, elated and on top of the world. These euphoric feelings are known as a high. This high is much stronger than anything the brain would usually feel, so it quickly makes the brain want to keep experiencing it over and over again. If someone keeps using the drug, their bodies can become reliant on it. When our bodies depend on a substance, we feel like we can't function properly without it. This is called dependence. You can think of dependence like someone whispering into a microphone. If your audio equipment is set up to capture a whisper, then someone suddenly shouts into the microphone, it will blow the speakers. If you then turn down the speaker volume to make the shouting more bearable, you'll notice that you can barely hear the whisper at all. The same is true for your body. If someone abuses a drug for the purpose of getting high, over time their body will adjust, giving them a smaller and smaller reward each time they use the drug. The consequence of this is that healthy and enjoyable activities, like reading or playing sport, no longer result in the reward that they used to. This can also lead to a cycle of increasing substance use as individuals try to chase the high they once experienced. When we talk about addiction, it's important to recognise that not all addictions are bad for us. Many of our healthy habits, like eating well and exercising, are natural addictions and the brain simply doing what it's meant to do. It's also a misconception that all drugs are equally addictive. Some substances are far more addictive than others. For example, nicotine in tobacco and vaping products is highly addictive, while caffeine is generally considered to be less so. According to NHS Inform, you can start to become dependent on nicotine within days of starting to use it. With other drugs, dependence can creep up on people over time when they start to use it more regularly and in increasing amounts. Once dependence takes hold, it becomes extremely difficult to break an addiction. But with the right help and support, people can get better. Awareness of these differences can help us to stay safe and make informed decisions about substance use. If you or anyone you know is struggling with substance misuse or addiction, it's vital to seek help from a medical professional.